beer sound.
Hello and welcome to Drink to the Past. My name is Sean Michael Patrick Thompson, as always, your host, and this is the only podcast where I switch to a fun Irish accent halfway through the ubiquitous opening monologue and remind you to subscribe and share our content. I am joined by my co-host, Chris.
Did the beer sound a little late there?
The beer sound will be stapled on. We didn't actually record the beer sound.
Did we not act? Gross.
We recorded it, but we recorded it like 2 weeks ago. Four? I'm not keeping track anymore. And we've also got a special guest, Breath of the Lyle.
Hello.
He's the coolest streamer we've ever had on here. But don't tell Crow I said that.
Glass. I did a clink with the glass. I figured that's better than nothing.
That'll work. All right. Today on Sean Drinks Something Stupid, I looked up what this was called and then immediately forgot. But it is pickle juice and tequila. So.
Oh, God.
I had some extra pickle juice and I was like, I could make something stupid out of this.
That's just, sounds excellent.
Tastes like pickle juice and tequila. Not as much. The tequila is actually very muted by the pickle juice, because pickle juice is quite a strong flavor in general. So it's not bad. I mean, if you like pickle juice, then you'll probably like this.
When you close your eyes and say pickle juice 3 times, you'll appear in a Tim Burton movie.
Pickle juice, pickle juice, pickle juice. Did it work? No, we're still as low budgeted as ever.
You don't want to appear in a Tim Burton movie.
Well, it depends on which Tim Burton. Is it like one of his animated things, or some ubiquitous Johnny Depp pseudo horror thing, or is it Batman?
Oh, I thought every one of his films was Johnny Depp.
Most of them, yeah.
Vast majority.
All right. Anywho,
he might be pigeonholed a bit.
Right. So, shall we get into our first real segment, is Whatcha Playin? So, what you been playing this week, Chris, other than, obviously, you're playing a little Minecraft here on stream, because the voters chose you get to pick what we're going to have, because apparently they liked that better than my Sonic 06 gameplay from last week.
I mean, Sonic 06 is a travesty.
Right. So, what you playing, Chris?
Other than Minecraft, I've been replaying Chrono Trigger.
Awesome. That's kind of random.
Which is still, it was on Steam, and I was like, hey, maybe I should replay that. And I did, and Chrono Trigger is great.
Cool.
And for anybody who hasn't played Chrono Trigger, they should find time to do that at some point in their lives. Mm-hmm. I have also been playing a lot of the newest meme game, Among Us.
Okay, I keep hearing things about that, but not descriptive things.
Best description is werewolf, but in space and in real time. It's a lot of fun.
That could be interesting.
And it is, but I also kind of see why it took off on like YouTube. It is very much a streamer can react kind of game. So.
All right. Lyle, what you been playing this week?
Oh, and one more game. Sorry. Very, very bizarre game. A fan game called The Seventh JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the Seventh Stand User?
Yes. I'm all about some JoJo.
Okay. So you play, and I just finished watching the third part, but you basically play through Stardust Crusaders, which is the third part of JoJo's, for anybody who hasn't watched that, as a character, and it's kind of got a Pokemon mystery dungeon like questionnaire for the stand you get to use. So it's very ambitious for a fan game.
Cool. JoJo is one of those animes that I've always been like slightly intimidated by, because the fan base is like so
Homestucky?
Something like that, yeah. And I kind of feel like it's so big of an anime at this point that, like, I feel like I should just watch it just to have said I have watched it as one of those, mainstream things or something. But I've never got around to it. And I don't think it's on any, like, streaming services that I pay attention to.
It's on Crunchyroll, but that's
and then the first 3 parts are on Netflix as well.
Okay, so maybe I'll try it on Netflix and see if I get into it. Although that might be dangerous, because then I'll, watch what's on Netflix, and then I'll forget where I was and never end up coming back to it, which is what happened with Fairy Tail, because I started that, and I watched all of the 2 seasons or whatever they had on Netflix, and I don't remember exactly where I was, so now I'm like, oh, I could watch it on Funimation app, but I, never get around to it. So. Anyways, Lyle, what have you been playing this week?
So I just started playing Rocket League for the first time. I've never tried that. A friend of mine was playing it, and I didn't expect her to play it, so she was like, you should try it. And I was like, okay. So I did. And then I just finished up Resident Evil 2 Remake again on stream. That game is a classic, obviously. And I also just tried a rhythm-based first-person shooter roguelike dungeon crawler called Bullets per Minute?
Yeah, bullets per minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I heard of that. It sounded like just trippy enough to be awesome.
It's not very substantial, but it's okay. Like, I don't think it's a full-priced game. I don't remember. It was gifted to me. Okay. But it has the visual aesthetic of Doom 2016. And it plays like Crypt of the Necrodancer, so it's fun. Huh. I don't do well with roguelikes and having to start over from the beginning with
right.
Yeah,
that was a little bit of my problem with the original Crypt of the Necrodancer. Was just like I'd get to level 2 or something, or I usually. When I stopped playing, I could consistently get to level 2, even if I got, like, crappy weapon drops. But then I pretty much had to get really good weapon drops to get to level 3, and I never got past that at all. And it's just, like, kind of annoying that you can't, like, save your progress or, start on floor 2 if you've beat it or something like that. I'm not,
or, like, maintain your upgrades or whatever.
I'm, like, not sure if there's a... And you'd upgrade little by little here and there, because you get to keep your gems or whatever. So it still had some sense of progression, but I'm not sure it felt like enough that it would keep me playing for a long, long time. But it was... I did enjoy my time while I had it, and it wasn't, like, a super expensive game either. So it's like, okay, I got my, $20 fill or however much I spent on it.
Gotcha. And then I also started Genshin Impact, which is that it's essentially Breath of the Wild, but with anime waifus, and it's really good.
Breath of the Wild, but with anime waifus. I'm sold.
Yeah, it's a free to play. It has like a gacha system, but it's not. But the gacha system,
I'm unsold.
But the gacha system's like not in your face with it.
Okay, because that's been a little bit of my like hesitant to pick that upness has been all of they're like, it's Breath of the Wild, but gacha, and I'm just like so off of gacha games. Like, so yeah, that's kind of interesting to hear that it's not all up in your face about it. That would be kind of nice.
Usually I'm pretty turned off by that kind of stuff too, like 100%. But it's very much not in your face. Like, it doesn't try to get you to buy shit like immediately right off the bat. It's not like you're going to be It's not like you're going to be pigeonholed if you don't do X, Y, or Z. Like, it's very much you choose what you're comfortable with, and you have that option there. Similar to how like Overwatch has like, oh, you can buy extra skins if you wanted to. You don't have to.
Right.
It's just there.
Okay.
But it's also just a super gorgeous game too, like aesthetically.
Yeah, all the screenshots and gameplay I've been seeing lately, because it came out pretty recently, didn't it?
I think it's like 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
I was thinking it was within the last week sometime. It does look pretty cool. I'm like, maybe I'll check that out. So yeah,
I mean it's free. You got nothing to lose, really.
That's true. So yeah, maybe I'll give that.
Gacha game with anime waifus is never free. When will you learn?
Yeah. So for myself, I've played a little bit more of the Turing test on Xbox Game Pass streaming to my phone, which has been really cool. Because, like I said earlier, a couple of weeks ago on the podcast when I started this, it just the streaming quality actually runs pretty well. And now I feel like it runs even better now that we're a couple of weeks in. So I think maybe like a bunch of people were doing it right at the start or something. So now it feels even better. But I think it's actually kind of cool that stuff like this is on Xbox Game Pass now, because I'm playing games that I would have had interest in before, but I probably wouldn't have like paid full price for the Turing test. I probably would have like seen it and been like, that sounds kind of neat, but I don't want to, I'm not sure I'll fork over for it. So, and other times I've seen games that I'd literally like considered buying several times, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I'm really just digging the whole Xbox subscription model lately, and I don't even have an Xbox, which is kind of hilarious to me. And a little bit of Halo ODST, which released on PC this week. So that's been kind of fun. I haven't played a ton of it, but it's really kind of cool coming again off of... I've been playing through all the Halos since I bought Master Chief Collection a few months ago on PC. And it's still just one of the more unique Halos is ODST, because it's like you're not... I feel like you don't feel quite as super badass as Master Chief, but you're still like balanced enough in the gameplay to where it's still pretty fun. And you still feel like a badass, even sometimes more like a badass, because you're like, oh, I'm doing the shit that Chief does, except I don't have, overshields and, cybernetic enhancements and shit. I'm just a guy. So that's pretty cool. All right. Is that all we've been playing this week for the most part? We can move on to News and Booze. So I'm going to give this pickle juice cocktail, which I forgot the name of. I guess since I forgot the name of it, we have to drink. So for you viewers at home on YouTube, I'll hold up my drink sign for you. For you viewers on Podbean, you'll have to just take our audio cues and drink along at home. Yeah, so I'm going to give this a 10. Right in the middle. I mean, it tastes like pickle juice. That's it. It's not like awful, but it's just pickle juice.
That in and of itself is disgusting.
Nice.
I always like the saltiness of pickle juice.
I'm just not a pickle guy, so like I'm really super stingy when I go to Chick-fil-A, and if I even like get a hint that there was a pickle on my sandwich, and they're like, I will be like, no, you're replacing this.
Nice.
Pickle deletus.
Yeah. What you drinking this week? Let's see, Lyle. Why don't you go first? What are you drinking?
I'm keeping it simple with just some Angry Orchard.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. What do you rate that on a scale of 3 to 17?
I'd give it probably about a 15 and 6/7.
All right. That's pretty good. I do like Angry Orchard. Is it just the regular old Angry Orchard? Because they make a few different kinds.
Yeah, they do. I ventured out and tried the rosé a little while back,
Okay.
which wasn't bad. But yeah, you're right. I'm just doing the regular in a glass this time, because for me it's pretty like black and white that there's a big difference when you pour an Angry Orchard into a cold glass versus just drinking it out of the bottle. Right. And it's just so much better in a glass.
There's a lot of things that I've noticed are like that. Like, I got a 6-pack last week of the stout that Chris drinks on the podcast a lot, is Left Hand Brewery's Milk Stout. And I just had a few right out of the bottle, and they were like fine, but I poured a couple into a glass, and just the way that it because it's a nitro beer, it sort of re-nitrogenates itself or something. I'm not exactly sure, but mixing it up and letting it resettle in a glass actually really opens it up and just makes the flavors just probably 10 times more intense. It's significantly better out of a glass. Chris, speaking of you, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Santa Fe Brewing Co.
Mm.
Java Imperial Java Stout.
Neat.
Which is, I was drinking it and I was like, this tastes really familiar. And then it hit me that it's basically like drinking a combination of a lot of other stouts I've had, plus my morning coffee, which I have had probably since like age 18. So, yeah, I like it. It's very familiar. That's about the worst thing I could say about it.
Yeah. Well, what do you rate it?
14 for now.
All right. Went all the way to New Mexico just for a beer. I'm sure you road tripped out there, right?
Yeah, all the way out there to see my uncle, and then I was like, shit, my uncle doesn't live here anymore.
Huh. That's silly guy. All right, so let's get into the news part of News and Booze. Our first piece of news is Peggy, which is basically, for people who are unaware, the rating board in Europe, which does the same thing as the ESRB, where they rate all the video games and tell you, like, hey, don't give this to your kids. There's blood and guts. Anyways, they gave a provisional rating for Final Fantasy 16 of 18 plus, which is essentially their M for mature.
What, they don't like genocide?
I guess. So this is just kind of interesting that it's not a final rating, it's a provisional rating. I'm not sure exactly why they would give a provisional rating like a year or so before the game actually releases. But, I don't know much about Peggy not being a, UK citizen or whatever. But it's still kind of interesting that, like, this might be the first Final Fantasy game to push the M rating envelope in the main series of games, at least. I was reading there was, like, one spin-off once that was M rated or something. But most of them, obviously, have kind of stuck to the teen kind of rating. So what do you guys think about that? You think Final Fantasy would do well with an M rating, or do they need it? Would it really matter that much?
Well, first I think they might be getting an M rating just due to subject matter alone, because what I said as a joke, kind of, is right. Probably the game does deal with things like genocide.
Yeah. That's kind of true. It is hard to really gauge how newsworthy this is without knowing why they were giving it an M rating. Is it is it the blood and guts? Is it the subject matter? Is it, is there a whole bunch of boobs in it for some reason? We don't know. Can you customize your genitalia like Cyberpunk?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that would only get like a teen rating in Europe. No. What do I know? I don't live there.
I don't know. Do they have genitalia in Europe?
I'm pretty. I think so.
Okay. Do you know any European people? What do they call European people? Europias?
Europeans?
Europioids? Opioids.
I apologize to the 0 Europeans listening to this podcast.
There's one guy in the UK on the Two Guys Playing Zelda Discord who occasionally listens, so if he's listening, then then we have to drink. Okay.
I think for Final Fantasy, it's about time that they put an M rating on something, regardless of the subject matter, because with the direction that they're taking the franchise, it's harder to convey that something is like as destructive in terms of themes and motif when the games are, when they look like Final Fantasy VI, or as cutesy as the character models were in Final Fantasy VII. Like, you can have all the text all you want, but when you have a game that's able to show the type of realism, I think the rating increase is an inevitability.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, because they've always dealt with subject matter that's not like it's generally on the darker side of subject matter, and like in some cases it almost surprised me, like that this was able to get away in a E-rated game or whatever, and I wondered how much of that was just like, oh, it's on Super Nintendo, it can't be that bad, right?
And I think part of that is attested to the fact that, with Octopath Traveler, if you're familiar with that at all, like, it dealt with themes of rape and prostitution with primroses.
Yeah, there was a few times in there where I was like, wow, this is a lot darker than I really expected this game to go, especially because of the teen rating. Not that it's necessarily like overtly
like
M-rated, but it's like something that you very rarely see in a game that's not M-rated,
So they're cool with it if it's like dark subject matter, but if you actually go the full mile and depict it in a gritty fashion, suddenly that's too far.
I guess, yeah. If it's pixel art, it's fine. The pixel art can sleep with the other pixel art.
Because it's not the pixel art that children are learning from. They're not.
It's kind of like how you show.
That's what they're taking from it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how you can show Bart Simpson's penis in a PG-13 rated movie, but any other penis and it goes to the R, right? Yeah. Automatically. Spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched the Simpsons movie since it came out 15 years ago.
Oh man, I was holding out for that. Damn it!
Spoiling the one gag from that movie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There was more than one gag in that movie.
Yeah.
Aside from the movie itself.
Yeah.
Anyways, next piece of news, EA Play, as we know, will be added to Xbox Game Pass, and they have announced the release date for that will be November 10th, which is the same day Xbox Series X and Series S release, or as Lyle likes to call them, the X-Sex.
Yeah, the Xbox Sex. Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool that, like, right instantly when you get your new console, or when I get my new console, because I got mine pre-ordered, it'll come with all this shit.
Pre-order.
Awesome, yeah. For Series S or X?
Yeah, for the X. One of my friends in California was he changed his mind and he was like, "If you want my pre-order, you can have it." And I was like, "Sure."
There you go. Not bad, yeah. I had an interesting time with that because I went on to GameStop's online website because I didn't think I'd make it into the store on time because I had to work, but I got off of work in time to where I could like watch my phone at 9 o'clock or whenever it was supposed to go live, 8 o'clock. I think it was 9 o'clock. So I'm like watching it, and GameStop's website like crashed for a second because too many people were trying to get in, and then they actually had an interesting way of handling it online, was that they like put everybody in a queue to access the GameStop website at all. So I was just put in a queue and I waited for almost an hour, and then it let me in, and I was like looking around the site, and most of the stuff at that point was sold out, but I found I could get the Xbox Series S, which is the one I wanted anyway, but I could only get it in a bundle that came with like a 2-year subscription of Game Pass and a headset or something. And I was like, okay, whatever, that might work. I could use a new headset. I wouldn't be... And I was going to pay for the Game Pass anyways, so why not? I was like, and so I went in to pay, and there was some sort of issue with the payment, and they put a hold on my money for a week, even though the order didn't go through. And I was like, oh, this is like crap. But I drove over to GameStop because I was like, I can get there by the time they open. And I went to a different GameStop than I normally do, and they open at a different time. So they were already open, and I was like, oh, they're going to have no pre-orders on this. I'm already too late. Whatever, I'll go in just to see. And I was like, you got any Xbox pre-orders? They're like, yeah, but only for Series S. I'm like, sweet. So I just walked in the store and got one. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Lucky as shit right there.
I do feel like I've kind of lost the thread on the various kinds of Xbox at some point.
If the title ends in an S, it's a digital only console. So like you have the Xbox One, you have the Xbox One X, and then you have the Xbox One S, and the X has a disk drive. The S does not. So the Xbox Series X has a disk drive. The Xbox Series S it does not. So it'll be strictly digital.
Whoa, there is an actual order to it. You just kind of blew my mind.
There you go.
Yeah. You have to kind of pay attention real closely to understand the order, but it is, in fact, there.
I like to think of it like the meme that I saw on the internet. It's like what's his face? The Count from Sesame Street is the head of the naming, like marketing for the PlayStation, and then the Jim Carrey Riddler is the naming planner for the Xbox.
Nice.
And there's reason for what Jim Carrey does. It's just, ups and downs.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about EA Play being added to Game Pass and coming out day one when the new console launches? Do you think that's a good strategy? You think that's going to do real well and maybe push Xbox a little bit?
So maybe I don't fully understand that because, like, I get it that is it just that all the EA games are going to be available on Xbox Game Pass?
All the ones that are on the EA Play subscription service. So right now you can already get EA Play as a subscription service, I think, and download and play some of their games. So it's not every EA game like ever, but it sounds like it's like a good chunk of the, sports games and some of the Star Wars and stuff like that. So I'm just excited that I'll be able to play Star Wars games again because I haven't hardly kept up with them since they haven't been putting any Star Wars games on Nintendo consoles for like a decade.
Could that lead to future hikes in pricing for the Games Pass? Just like adding additional streaming services to
Potentially down the line, I guess it's possible. I imagine that, this will not always be feasible at, the $15 a month price point it is right now. I don't know how long that will be feasible, because, I feel like that's less per game per gamer than selling them at, a full $60. But
right.
I guess, theoretically, that depends on how long they're subscribed and all this and that. So it's a really all the numbers are a little bit over my head. It's just I'm just kind of taking it as it comes to me and being like, okay, they're adding more and more value to this, and so far the price hasn't gone up that much, right? Because obviously I got in the introductory month for PC Game Pass. And it was like $1 for the first month and then $5 a month after that. And so obviously they couldn't keep that up forever, but now it's just like, okay, $15 for streaming on your phone, playing games on your Xbox or PC at any time. I'm just like, okay, shut up and take my money, I don't think that's too bad. Little piece of tabletop news and booze. Curse of Strahd Revamped was announced a couple of months ago. It's got a release date, which will be October 20th, just in time for Halloween. So if you're not familiar, Curse of Strahd is a pre-made RPG setting, which is a little bit of a sandbox in the Ravenloft world. So kind of a gothic horror setting. So that's pretty cool. Chris, you ever play the original Curse of Strahd?
I have never played the original Curse of Strahd. That's a game that was very campaign, that was very popular, but was always kind of on my periphery. Mm-hmm. Like I had always heard stories about it,
right?
But I never got the chance to play it myself. And Ravenloft has always been kind of an interesting area in D&D.
Yeah.
Kind of the modules that came out of that and the setting that followed. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see what they're revamping, I guess. I don't have anything to compare it to.
To me, it sounds like it's more or less the same campaign, but they're kind of translating everything into 5th edition from the original. Because that was originally, what was it, AD&D or something? I don't remember. That's a pretty old one. I don't remember how old, though. So it sounds like they're just kind of, upgrading all the enemies to make sense with the edition of D&D that people play now that it's popular. So sounds kind of interesting to me. But I do too much homebrew stuff myself to ever, run it. But I would be excited to play this as just kind of a classic thing to experience if, somebody in our play group picked it up and was like, hey, I want to play this. Lyle, have you played any Ravenloft, or you have any idea what we're talking about?
I heard D&D and I was like, okay, no, I'm good. I'm all right.
Yeah.
No, I don't have nothing against it. I just don't play it.
Right. All right. So, next piece, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity trailer shows playable Impa, which is kind of cool. So she looks a lot like Paya from the original Breath of the Wild, because obviously they're, related, grandmother and granddaughter. But it's kind of cool to see Impa, 100 years before the original, or before Breath of the Wild, obviously. So, that's kind of cool. What do you guys make of this?
The Impa reveal?
Yeah.
She looks I know you've posted stuff on like Twitter about this before, or someone follow has, but the what Impa goes to looking like, based off of that to what Impa looks like at the time of Breath of the Wild is pretty dramatic. It's a pretty dramatic difference.
Yeah, that's true. It's like I'm seeing everybody post all the cute waifu art, and then other people are like, she turns into this. So
Really puts life in perspective.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you
like,
hyped for Impa?
it's kind of like when people are like, you see Impa from Skyward Sword when she's younger, and then when she becomes, it's not as drastic a change, but it's still like, you can see the age, you can see what time has done.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like the Impa redesign, for lack of a better way to put it, because it's not really a redesign. It's just, I would say it's more just era based for her design. I do like that she resembles, what was it, Pura, or I forgot that. Paya. Because I ship Link and Paya hardcore. But I like her. I like the whole ninja aspect of it. I've always been more fascinated with knowing more about the Sheikah tribe, and I think hopefully it'll give us some more insight into just how it functions as a whole.
Yeah. All right. Pokemon Crown Tundra DLC will drop October 22nd, and a new version of Sword and Shield is coming bundled with all of the DLC November 6th. So, go ahead, Lyle.
I was just saying, of course it is Nintendo.
Yep.
Oh boy. So Sword and Shield it's a touchy subject for me, because I wasn't necessarily hyped for Sword and Shield. But I gave it a shot. I played through it, and they changed a key feature that really turned me off of it. So the DLC, when I heard there was DLC coming, I was like, all right, do I play it or do I don't? And I ended up not playing it. But apparently people are getting really hyped for this new DLC, because they're bringing back every legendary that's ever
legendary.
I'm kind of like, that seems cool, but they also did that in Gen 6 and 7, so I'm like not sure how much I want to revisit every legendary and grind them all again.
Well, the thing with that is, like, when you have too many legendary Pokemon, it depreciates the term legendary.
Right.
So, like, I don't really feel like I have legendary Pokemon if I have a billion of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Then you can, like, I'm sure you're gonna see people online who are like, oh, I paid for the DLC and grinded all the legendary Pokemon, and now I don't have to put nearly as much thought into my online battle team, because I just throw a bunch of legendaries at you, and they have big giant attacks, and they're all pretty good. And it's like, kind of breaks the meta a little bit, not that legendary Pokemon are like the end-all be-all, and with good strategy and other good Pokemon you can certainly beat them, but it does kind of like take the wind out of you when you're like, go a couple of battles with really cool people with awesome strategies on their teams, and you're going neck and neck, and then you find somebody that's just got like 6 Darkrai's and he kicks your ass, and you're like, fuck you, man.
So like, not even in the competitive scene though. It to me it takes the magic away because playing Gen 1 is not my favorite generation by a long shot. But when you're playing like Gen 1 and stuff, and you discover Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno and Mewtwo, it's a sense of wonder. Like you also feel like you accomplished something because
Yeah.
it was a trek to get to those, and that continued well into like Gen 3 when you get like the Reggies.
Yeah. That was something
Because
I thought was really awesome in Gen 1 is like one of them was in a dungeon that you had to go through to complete the game, and the other 3 of the legendaries in that game were just in like crazy hard like bonus dungeons along the way somewhere. So it's like it really did feel, like you were accomplishing something, like you said. And in more modern game, like I remember in Gen 5, in Black 2 and White 2, literally all of the legendaries are just in your path in the main storyline, and you cannot progress without catching them. It's like,
Oh, that's dumb.
why do I even care about these anymore?
like they become the poster child for that generation of the game, but at the same time, if they're just going to be handed to me at the end of the game, then what's the point? There's no suspense. There's no. It completely erases my motivation to want them.
Yeah. And with most of them, you're just like, okay, put them to sleep and throw Ultra Balls for a while. Okay, I got it. It's not even like a fight.
I will say though, to add maybe a little positivity to the new DLC, there are going to be 2 new Reggie legendaries. There's going to be like I think there's going to be an electric one, and what is it? Maybe psychic. I don't remember.
Yeah, those do kind of look pretty cool. I do like some of the new like Galarian legendary forms is what it kind of seems like. They're really cool designs, and I'm kind of but as far as the DLC went, like I feel like I spent my time with the game, and I really thought about buying the first DLC because it looks like it's, the parts of the game that I like the most. It's basically a new wild area to run around and explore this big 3D space and see Pokemon in their natural habitats and shit like that. And I'm like, dude, that's fucking cool. But at the same time, I was just like, I feel like I've already had my time with Pokemon this generation. I feel like that time is done, and I just don't need to, bother.
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty much turned off of Pokemon for now because it like they changed the catching mechanic, which is what turned me off of it. Like I couldn't catch a Pokemon because I didn't have a certain level gym badge, regardless of.
Yeah, that was really weird how they handled that, because it's like, I thought one of the cool things about these wild areas was that you could, see all these Pokemon that are like way crazy high level, and then it's like, oh, but you can't actually beat them. And I'm like, what? Why? So what's even the point? Why don't I just avoid them and not give a shit? It's like you could grind down your whole team down to almost dust in order to defeat a level 40 with your team of level 20s, but that would yield like such negligible experience. It's like you might gain a level, maybe, but it would be easier to just run around in circles like slaying Rattatas. Who cares?
Well, that and the fact, like, even if my team was strong enough, if I weakened the Pokemon enough, if I throw a Pokeball, it doesn't matter. It'll just swat it away because it's like, it's too strong for you to catch. But I just weakened it down into the red. My Pokemon still has full health.
Right.
Why can't I?
And I felt like it was totally balanced the way they did it before, where it's like, okay, if you go into an area where the Pokemon are too powerful for you or something, then maybe they won't obey you or something. That had a flavorful reason and it still made them like you could use them, but you couldn't use them to their full potential until you had got that gym badge or whatever. I'm like, why was that mechanic scrapped in favor of this just plain annoying one where it's like dangling, look at the Snorlax, you can't catch it, fuck you. It's like, why?
Yeah, it makes you think, because like, what if I had thrown a Master Ball you know, and the Pokemon was stronger than me, and I didn't have a gym badge. Just hypothetically, I know they probably thought that through.
Snorlax
And
just eats your fucking Master Ball.
I know they probably thought that through and like didn't give me the Master Ball until after I had like every gym badge or whatever. But still,
I mean, somebody could trade you, you know, a level 1 Pidgey with holding a Master Ball.
We wanted you to experience a sense of pride and accomplishment.
I would have more pride and accomplishment catching a Pokemon that was a higher level than I was allowed to catch than be told that I couldn't catch it because I didn't have a piece of plastic.
Right. Anyways, let's move on. Chris is playing a very appropriate game for this last piece of gaming news, or second to last piece of gaming news.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so the new Super Smash Bros. Character was revealed yesterday is Steve from Minecraft with alternate skins of Alex, Zombie, and Enderman, which is to say I'm gonna play a shitload of Zombie, because that's fucking silly, and it's amazing. And there's more info coming out tomorrow, so that's gonna be cool. I imagine they'll do the, you know, normal Sakurai thing where it's like, hey, I'm Sakurai, watch me kick ass with this new guy. And those are always kind of fun. So what do you guys think about Steve? You think he deserves the spot? You think he's overrated? What are we thinking?
I'm kind of curious as to what they do with him. I've only heard the news secondhand. I haven't actually seen any trailers or anything. But I mean, if they're going for like most popular games, most influential games, it kind of makes sense that they'd add him. It's just, it strikes me as like a very typical choice in some ways, and then also at the same time a very weird choice.
Yeah, his moveset looks pretty weird. It's I think it looks pretty fun. He's got a move where he can like create blocks, and like it looks like he can just like build random things out of these blocks if you're clever enough, and then they kind of become obstacles for your opponents, but they break after a set amount of time, or it looks like they break if your opponents hit them too, which is kind of like how it works in Minecraft. Obviously, you know, you break apart the blocks by smashing them. But
yeah, I see a lot of people talking about like the animation style and how fitting it is for Steve in the trailer. They thought it was gonna have to have been altered to fit just kind of like the fast pace of the game, but he looks like he was taken straight out of Minecraft and just thrown straight into Smash, which I think is good because it keeps him pretty true to how he would behave in any game, I guess.
Yeah.
By that logic, but I think Steve's a good addition. I'm not a fan of Minecraft in general. Like I'm not anti, but it's not my thing.
Right.
What?
But I think
I'm just kidding.
With the massive success of Mojang and Minecraft, I think it's and like the art, like the art direction of Minecraft, I think it's very befitting and in a way kind of overdue.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
I'm not. I think it's, as you said earlier, Spam, like you're not necessarily hyped for it, but it's not, you know, you're not necessarily like super stoked or excited in particular for it, but it's not something that like you're like, oh, okay, that's a disappointment or whatever. Like, no, like I think it'll be a good addition.
Yeah, Minecraft for me is like, I like Minecraft like pretty well. I never thought that Steve would actually get in because he's barely a character, you know. He's more of an avatar. He's just like, this is your guy in this world. You know, he doesn't have a real personality to him. Is if I have any beef with this announcement, that's it. And that's not like all that bad, right? I'm like, okay, there's other Avatar characters, obviously. You got Byleth and Corrin. So it's like, it's not unheard of, but I don't know. I just like never saw him as anything more than that. I feel like Corrin and Byleth try to be more than that, and I feel like Steve doesn't. So I guess I just had it in my brain. So that's one of the reasons that I am actually really excited for this, though, is that I never saw it coming. I like all of my predictions, like for the next 1,000 years would never have been Steve. So I'm just excited that, like, such a left field announcement kind of came out and just surprised the fuck out of me.
I will say the only thing that really disappoints me about this announcement is that it's not Chrono from Chrono Trigger.
That would actually be really cool. I would like to see Chrono.
I think Chrono would be excellent.
Yeah. I wonder if they could, like, incorporate, like, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking almost of, like, the core mechanics of Chrono Trigger are all based around having a party and doing multiple things. So I wonder if they'd, like, put in, like, Chrono and Marl together. And maybe even a third, like Frog or somebody. And have all three of them do, you know, different things. Maybe you can switch between them, or maybe you can do combo attacks. Like, it's, yeah, because they could theoretically work like Ice Climbers or something, where there's both of them there. So there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with that. And I feel like for Chrono to work really well, you'd almost have to add that kind of, because that was the coolest thing about Chrono Trigger's combat system, is depending on your party, you had access to totally different moves because of the combo attacks and stuff. And that was like the defining factor of the gameplay for me.
I think it would be really interesting to see him have a bunch of different final smashes that were just all triple techs from the game.
Now that would be sweet. I'd love that.
I think they showed his final smash, actually. I don't remember what it was. I do remember they showed his, like, his victory screen, and it was him, like, building a house and, like,
yeah, Steve's final smash is pretty hilarious because he puts down, like, this giant plunger thing, and it just smashes your guy into a cutscene like a lot of them are doing.
That's right.
And and it smashes you, like, into the back of this house full of fucking creepers, and you just look around and the creepers all blow up on you. I'm like, and then, like, it kind of zooms out to this house exploding, and Steve's just there just eating a piece of meat. Like, you fucking dick. That's awesome. Just, what a cheeky bastard. Just nomming on a steak while this guy's exploding. I love it. All right. Today's beer of the week is a special for the first podcast in the month of October, because October is pumpkin season, apparently. So look at me, I got my pumpkin spice. I'm such a
white
something.
Girl.
Yeah, I'm a white girl apparently, because I like pumpkin spice. I don't know. I'm like, pumpkin beers. I'm like a little bit hit and miss on. This one's from our good buddies over at Golden City Brewery. So if you're in the Colorado area, go check them out. They make the best beer in the motherfucking world. They've been on the podcast a few times.
Jeremy a bone to pick with that statement.
What?
So I think Germany, just the country of Germany, would have a bone to pick with that statement.
All right. Well, if they can make a German beer in Germany as good as they can in Golden City Brewery, then I would love to see them try.
Having tasted Golden City Brewery beers, I gotta say, like, I have not tasted every beer in the world, but they are fucking up there.
Mm-hmm. I've always kind of wanted to go and, you know, experience some of these beers in, like, the places where the style originated, at breweries where they might have originated and stuff like that. See some historic breweries like that. I just thought that would be cool. I went to the Guinness brewery when I was a kid, and I was too young to drink even in Ireland, and it was like, it's right there, but I have to have a Coke. Fuck. But, it was kind of cool just to tour the Guinness brewery, though, because there's a lot of history there anyways, and I learned a lot about brewing beer, even though I was only like 13 or something. 12 or 13? Yeah. Anyways, so this is, normally they have on tap at Golden City Brewery their Mad Molly's Brown Ale, and this is their Mad Molly's Pumpkin Brown. So I had a little bit of this with supper tonight, too, because I got a growler, so I've been pre-gaming already. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the better pumpkin beers I've had, actually. It mixes well with the general nuttiness and carameliness in the brown ale itself, and that makes for a really unique it's not overly pumpkin-y too. It's like it's got enough pumpkin that you can tell it's a pumpkin ale, but I feel like most pumpkin ales are just like, look, it's pumpkin and maybe a little cinnamon. Shut up and drink it. And this one's really unique, really hits the spot in just as many ways as a pumpkin beer possibly can, I feel like. That is a 15.
My favorite wedding song, Shut Up and Drink.
That's my favorite wedding toast.
If I'm ever asked to do a wedding toast, that's going to be my wedding toast. And nobody ever asks me to do wedding toasts or speeches or anything like that, because I'm always the guy that plays the bagpipes at everybody's wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, I know some weddings that you're playing bagpipes at.
Yeah. All right. And, Chris, do you want to do our last piece of news and booze?
Yeah, this is one that's been personally exciting for me as a tabletop dude who continues to buy Kevin Crawford's shit. Worlds Without Number Kickstarter is scheduled to go live on October 5th, which is awesome in that it's kind of like an original flavor, almost D&D return to form book, but it's more in the flavor of Jack Vance's Dying Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's only got the 3 classes, but man, are they distinctive. Mage characters can only cast a few spells per day, but their spells are incredibly powerful. Fighters
I thought about making a
D&D
homebrew class like that once that got like access to like level 2 spells at level 1, and like just got an accelerated like growth of spell learning, but could only do like 1 spell a day for the first 3 levels, and then could get like 2 spells a day after that or something. So they were like the epitome of the glass cannon, just like, I can cast Fireball 3 levels before anybody else, but I can do it 1 time per day, and then I am useless. But yeah, World Without Numbers does sound pretty cool, so check that out on Kickstarter. I will put the link in the description on YouTube and Podbean if you are interested in Worlds Without Numbers.
Yep.
And with that, shall we go into our video game topic for the week?
Absolutely.
Video game topic for today is PlayStation 5 versus Xbox sex.
PlayStation 5 versus Xbox sex.
Yeah. So just, we're pretty short away from these, and I was wondering, what you guys have thoughts of, like, for the short term, for the long term. How do you think they'll do? Or which one are you buying, if either? Are you going to buy both eventually? Or, just all these kind of things about, we're about to enter a new generation of gaming. What do you guys think about it?
So I'll be having both either first day or the first couple of weeks, because the Xbox will be coming from Amazon, so who knows if they'll delay that one or not.
Right.
But PlayStation, the PlayStation 5 will be here from Walmart, hopefully day one as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting pretty much what's pretty obvious with both. So like the Xbox Series X or the Xbox X is going in my living room. It's going to be like, it's not going to be like a centerpiece. It's not going to the game room. It's not going to get the love and attention like the PS5 is going to get. But it's going to be something, that has a disc drive I can play movies in. I have Games Pass. I'll casually play games on it in the living room. So that'll be good to have. I expect PlayStation to maintain this strong first-party IP. I don't want to say lineup, but just a continuation, a flow of games, if you will.
Yeah.
So like, I hope for a Bloodborne HD remake. I think both companies will strive doing remakes and remasters, because that's still a continuing trend. But for PlayStation, Bloodborne HD remake will be great. I heard rumors of a God of War 3 HD remake, like another one. Obviously, they did one before. But for Xbox, they're making the monetary moves. They're buying studios. We're probably going to get a PS5 upgraded Skyrim, for all we know. But I still am not expecting anything strong from Xbox, so my expectations are set pretty low. Yeah, that's my general thought.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to look at Xbox in the long term, because I feel like in the short term that all is absolutely correct, but just with the amount of studios that Xbox has bought and with some of the key ones like Bethesda, I feel like in the next 3 or 4 years we could really see the fruits of that, and it could be really, really beneficial for Xbox potentially. If Elder Scrolls 6 comes out and it's Xbox exclusive, I feel like that's bigger to me than anything PlayStation has ever had, as far as exclusives go. Just because I'm a massive Elder Scrolls fan. Same thing with Doom or Fallout. If either one of those comes out and it's Xbox exclusive, I feel like that's a real big ding against Sony. But at the same time, those kinds of potential futures are a long way off, because whatever projects Bethesda started, they probably already had PS5 versions in the works for a lot of them, things like that. So I think for the next few years, I think we're going to see Bethesda still maintain almost that third-party status where they're putting everything they make on every console that they can, But I think after a few years, we could potentially see, some really big things moving in Xbox's favor for first-party titles. And especially since, those are going to be bundled into Game Pass, that's kind of crazy to think about. It, theoretically, we could have, in 2 or 3 years, we could have a Fallout game and an Elder Scrolls game and a Doom game all come out in the same year, theoretically, and you don't have to buy any of them to play them on Xbox. You just have to, be subscribed to the service, and then bam, you get all these. And then, maybe even a new Halo expansion, a new Gears of War, Fable, something like that. I feel like they could have a ridiculously strong lineup, and the fact that they're monetizing it the way they are later in the generation, I think could really skyrocket them ahead of Sony, potentially.
Realistically, I think we could also see the increase in timed exclusives if they're not going to make it just one or the other. I think we've seen a spike in that in the past couple of years as well. So,
yeah,
I don't know, maybe like a 6 month to a year release between systems.
Yeah. Because we've seen that from in several places, timed exclusives. There's been several on Switch, several on PS4. I can't think of any specifically on Xbox, but I bet they've been there. And that's another thing that is also kind of interesting is, is Bethesda being part of Microsoft, is that actually going to make it console exclusive? Because I still kind of wonder, are they going to... Because I feel like they could put it on Game Pass and get all their Xbox users to just have it that way, and then also monetize it as the $60 or $70 price point going into the next gen, potentially. And then have, I feel like that would be an interesting marketing strategy. So then you're kind of getting it the best of both worlds. Your Xbox users are going to get it on Game Pass 99% of the time, and then your PS5 users are still going to want that, so they'd probably be willing to pay the full price for, all these games. And then theoretically, you'd just be reaping the rewards from both demographics. Personally, I thought I was going to be on the PS5 hype train until like last week when I pre-ordered my Xbox Series X pretty much, or Series S, because another thing that I think is the pricing model. Because, $500 is a little bit hard for me to stomach where I am at financially, and it's like, it's not impossible. I can throw down $500 on something I really want every now and then. It's not going to kill me. My finances are not amazing, but they're like, I'm good enough. Okay, $500, I can fix it. But $300 is like, just for some reason that $200 to me is just like way easier to stomach. So I'm just like, I was like, right away I was interested in this, and then they announced that they were getting Bethesda, and I was like, also, I don't really have to buy games for it, so I'm, at least for the start of the generation, I'm going to be an Xbox gamer and not a PlayStation gamer primarily because of Game Pass. I'm going to set up my Xbox Series S and I'm just going to, play games on Game Pass. I'm going to get Cyberpunk for it just because I feel like I should buy one game for it, but like whatever, most games I play for this system for its entire lifetime are going to be just whatever happens to be on Game Pass at the time. And like, I don't even have any plans right now of going to Series X like ever. I don't have any specific plans to upgrade. I'm like, it almost seems like pointless to upgrade a little bit because like, I don't know, it'll all run better and all that, but I'm just like, at the same time, I'm like, these will run fine for like the whole generation theoretically, and like, why would I pay the extra $500 again to upgrade to something that I can play already? So, which is another kind of thing against Sony, at least at the start of the generation, like I'm saying, because I feel like I could definitely be a PS5 gamer like down the line. I would like to have both consoles because there's games on both consoles that I want to play. But for the start of the generation, the games I want to play are also coming to PS4, and I don't feel like I have to upgrade in order to play the games I want to play. So I'm just like, I don't care. That was like, when I found out that, I was like, that was kind of the straw that I was like, okay, I'm going to go Xbox instead of PS5, at least for the launch period, because, I can play all of the games that I want to play on PS5 on my PS4. Because the big things for me are Miles Morales and Horizon. And those are both coming out on PS4 as well. So I'm like, why do I even care? Like, until Final Fantasy 16 comes out, I don't give a crap.
Yeah, and Demon Souls is the big seller for me on PS5.
Yeah.
I never played Demon Souls on PS3, but being the big Dark Souls fan that I am, that game just, it sells it for me. And I guess a little mini piece of gaming news is that they kind of shadow dropped another game that was, I don't remember what company did it, but it's called Mortal Shell. It's very much Dark Souls-esque, and I think it's like $30, but it's released digitally, and the physical copy was supposed to release today, and it got pushed back to November, just to try and meet development demands. But yeah, that's the big pusher for me. Like Miles Morales, I can't imagine, aside from the story, the gameplay of that being much more than what Spidey PS4 was, and I platinum Spidey PS4, so I might wait for a price drop on Miles Morales.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm just like, I really liked Spider-Man PS4 pretty well, and, I'd be excited to play another, even if the combat is literally exactly the same, I'm like, okay, some new missions starring Miles Morales. I think the story content kind of sells that game for me, at least. But, again, it's like, it's coming out on PS4. Why would I pay, $570 when I could pay $60 or $40? I think it's even not a full-price game. I think it's like $40 on PS4 or something. So I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me.
I think that's the case because with the $70, and I could be wrong on this, the $70 one, you're also getting the PS5 spiced up PS4 version of Spider-Man.
Yeah, in the digital special edition or whatever they're calling it, which is a kind of an interesting idea. But I'm like not itching to play that game again. I'm like, I'll go back to it eventually, and if there's, big new content like a whole game worth in Miles Morales, then I'm interested. But I'm not like super gung ho about like revisiting it right away. So I'm like, because I only played Spider-Man. I finished it earlier this year, so I'm like, it was like right in March or something that I beat it on PS4. So I'm like, maybe if I got it like right at launch and beat it real quick, then maybe I'd be in that boat, but I'm not sure. For Demon's Souls, that does look really cool. I would be into that if I was getting a PS5. I'm not like super into the Souls series though. I've played Dark Souls 3 very briefly. I played, up to a certain... I'm not even sure how much I played. Like maybe an hour or two. And it was an interesting experience, but it wasn't enough to sell me on a system so far,
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am on that. If I had a PS5, I might just get it because it's, one of the big games for PS5, but it's not a thing that convinces me I need one.
Right.
Chris, where do you stand on this? Are you interested in Xbox or PS5 at this point? Because you haven't had a new console other than Switch in a long time, have you? Because you still got like your last one was your PS3, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, let's see. There's PS3, and then there was Switch, and not a lot between that.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was to pick up a console, it would still be PS5, due to them usually having more of the games that I like on them.
Right.
The big deciding factor for me would be most of the stuff that'll come out on Xbox or be Xbox exclusive, I feel like usually winds its way up to being on the superior of Microsoft's gaming machines.
Right.
So,
yeah, I guess, what do you think about this as a more of a PC gamer than... I don't know how much Lyle does, but I'm primarily a console gamer. So as a big PC gamer, do you have much interest in this console generation at all?
for me, it's usually when I pay attention, it's always been specific games. If Final Fantasy VII Remake, the complete version, makes its way onto PS5, that's much more of a point in its favor. I never really had the chance to play, say, the Fables by myself. And so I'm not so attached to those series. I can see why someone might be excited about that.
Yeah.
Mostly, and most of the game. So yeah, most of the games that I like to see either come out on Switch or a Nintendo console, or they come out on a Sony console, or they eventually wind their way up on PC.
Yeah, because that's an interesting thing, especially even with Sony lately. A lot of their big things have been coming to PC. Horizon Zero Dawn released earlier this year on PC, as did Death Stranding. And Final Fantasy VII Remake will release next year on PC. So, to a certain extent, if you are a PC gamer, I can't personally see a lot in this generation for you, especially from the Xbox side of things, because almost all the Xbox games are coming to PC as well, especially the Microsoft produced ones come like day and date. They release on both. And so like that's how I got into Game Pass is I'm just playing it on my PC, and I'm like kind of playing it on my PC mostly because I don't have an Xbox, because I'm still plugging in my Xbox 360 controller, which I just dropped on the Xbox 360 controller.
Yeah, that's and my view on it is, even though console exclusives tend to come a bit later to PC, that usually means they've had time to be sorted out. Like, the good ones have been... people have figured out what the good ones are and how to feel about a game more. And I'm not just jumping in on a hype train that might lead to failure.
Mm-hmm. I love jumping in on hype trains that might lead to failure. It's like my favorite pastime.
Hey.
So what do you guys think about Nintendo in the next generation? Do you think that because Nintendo is, at the very least, like there's rumors of a Switch Pro or something coming out, but even if that does come true, do you think there's the chance of there is no chance of a Switch 2, right? A next gen Switch. So do you think that Switch will do as well as it has done in the current ecosystem in the next ecosystem?
I don't. Sorry, go on.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't agree with the idea of, like, especially when it comes to the Switch. You know, there's only really one way to have it, because they already have the Switch and the Switch Lite. I don't like the idea of multiple systems, so like I think that they could honestly spend the time developing either games or the true next generation of a Nintendo system, instead of focusing on something that's just ever so slightly better than what they currently have.
Yeah.
Your average consumer is not going to care about, you know, if the screen is like a half-inch bigger, or it runs 0.5 seconds faster, or if its battery life is 30 minutes longer, what have you. Like, it's just not, it's not what's important to me as a consumer. So I really hope Nintendo is focusing on getting their dev teams on the games that they've already promised that are coming. So like Bayonetta 3, Metroid Prime 4, the ones that we are kind of like, hey, Nintendo, you said this a while ago. You haven't really said much since. What's the dealio? And I really hope time is being put into that versus a new system.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say exactly, because I feel like at a certain point in this next generation, the potential is there that third parties will drop off of Switch like they did with Wii U, just because it really can't compete. Or not even that Wii U couldn't compete. Wii U had other issues. But there comes a point where I feel like the compromises made to make a game run on handheld will be a lot more complicated to kind of figure out as you're designing a game, especially, you know, because if you're designing a game for new consoles that are designing it to run at 4K 60 FPS and stuff like that, and then you also have to make a downgraded version, you know, how much do you downgrade? You know, can you optimize it as well, or is that going to take basically the same amount of work as it would to make an entirely new game? So for third-party developers that are making their stuff available on, you know, every console, is there going to come a point this generation where Switch literally just can't keep up and third parties drop Nintendo again?
I mean, I feel like that's a possibility, but the draw of Nintendo has always been their first-party games.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's never really been the hardware. It's oh my god, the next Zelda. It's oh my god, the next Mario. It's never truly, like, Mario sells itself. It really does. Zelda is pretty much at that point.
Yeah.
It's Zelda games are, obviously a bit more dynamic with just the sheer concept. So there's a little more looking into it when buying a Zelda game, but at the same time,
We may be biased. This is a podcast called Drink to the Past.
Yeah. Because for me, yeah, it doesn't matter. You can be as experimental or as traditional as you want. If it has a Legend of Zelda logo on the box, I'll buy a fucking console for it.
I mean, hell, Hyrule Warriors, Cadence of Hyrule, like they've done a lot of experimentation with the franchise, just in general, and it sells. Like it does well because they take their time with it, and it's not even so much the game or the team, like the game itself that sells. It's because of the team that works on it. Like Nintendo cares about their product. It's known. Every single gaming company admits it. Like Sony says it. Microsoft says it. Developers say it whenever they get a chance to work with Nintendo. They know that Nintendo does not like to put out a faulty product, and it shows in their product.
Yeah. So, what do you think sales-wise these things will do? We don't have to do like exact numbers, but do you think that PS5 will just skyrocket ahead, or do you think there's more to the Xbox series of marketing that could potentially lead it to victory in the end, just through the fact that you don't have to buy games and stuff like that? Which one do you think will come out the overall number victor, and will that dictate who was most successful in the console generation?
If I had to put money on it, I would put money on, and it's just between Xbox and PlayStation. I would put money on PlayStation, if only because I think gamers like to own their games.
That is true. Lyle and me, I know, are at least very big physical collectors as well.
Yep.
So that is one kind of mark against Xbox, even though I went against, it kind of goes against my quote unquote moral code to, buy a digital only console. Because one of the things that I'm going to really miss about that, as far as being an Xbox gamer, is actually buying games and owning them and having physical copies and displaying all my cases and shit like that. But at the same time, it's like, it's such a good deal financially that, like, I feel like I can't say no. So I feel like they've both got their different things going for them. In the end, I feel like PS5 will probably sell more units than Xbox Series S/X, but I also feel like that doesn't necessarily dictate that they're the better, more successful console, or maybe even not console, but company. Because Microsoft is going to make a buttload of Game Pass, and they're not just going to do it on Xbox. They're going to do it on PC, on Xbox, and on streaming devices. So the fact that their marketing is so different, I feel like in the end, it'll probably be similar numbers in terms of financial success. But I feel like in units sold of the console, I feel like PlayStation will probably be the clear victor there. What do you think about this, Lyle?
I think because Microsoft came out of the door swinging with their bragging about how powerful their system was, that became the sole focus of their marketing with the Xbox. And like they know the games aren't really there. They're relying heavily on the Games Pass, which is going to be a good thing for them. But I think because they're focusing on the hardware and boasting about it and making a big deal about it, like, it's going to sell the console. I don't remember how good the 360 sold at launch, but I feel like that was I feel like that was the best Xbox that's been sold since. I could be mistaken. I'm not gonna be
I
looking right now.
believe that's correct as well, but I'm not. I'm also not 100% sure.
But I feel like this is the up curve with Xbox kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, bouncing back in the unofficial console war that people like to call it.
Right.
Sony just will always sell well.
Yeah.
I like to think of Xbox as like I built it in my garage, and I did my research and put it together, and I walk out of the garage in like my work clothes. I'm all oily, but here's a finished product and it works. Sony is the rich, classy. I'm walking out of the bar. I spent money where I knew where my research went. Here's my product, and it's also going to work. So I think it'll be relatively close, with kind of maybe Xbox pulling out a little bit in the lead.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be an interesting thing to kind of watch how this progresses, and I feel like console fanboys are going to be, yelling each direction in the other, and, because you're right, it does kind of just lend itself almost to a little bit of a console war, but at the same time, it's like, who cares? It's like, just play the games you like and shut the fuck up.
People are going to buy things regardless. Both companies are large enough. Like, it doesn't, like, you can, like, boasting strong sales numbers is great. Comparing them is pointless.
Yeah.
They're massively successful companies, and it doesn't matter at this point anymore.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on the PlayStation 5 versus Xbox 6?
I'm curious about the haptics for the PlayStation 5 controller.
I'm a little curious for those as well. I'm also kind of skeptical because I feel like they're probably going to use it in 2 games at the very launch and then forget it exists, just like they did with the touchpad on the PS4 controller and the motion controls on the PS4 controller and the HD Rumble on the Switch controller. It's just, I feel like it's a gimmick that could be really cool if it was used well, but I feel like a first-party game is going to use it pretty well, and then it's never going to be seen again.
I don't think that 4-dimensional immersion with console gaming is that important. Because, sitting on the couch and having a piece of plastic shake in your hand is the closest thing you're going to get to getting hit. It's not, I don't think there's anything innovative that's going to be coming with it. The best thing that came out of the motion controls with the PS4 controller was in The Last of Us, when your flashlight battery was going. Yeah. You'd shake the controller and it would. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how small that was compared to the library of games and the amount of things that the controller could actually do, I don't think we're going to see anything else.
Yeah. Because I like that, but at the same time, out of the PS4 games that I have played, The Last of Us is literally the only one that used those motion controls. And that was literally the only reason that they were there, was, oh, your flashlight is out of battery, shake it up. And it was funny, because every time I did it, it reminded me of No More Heroes, where you're shaking up your lightsaber to power it up. I was like, yeah, Travis' touchdown is making me feel dirty now. But, yeah, so it's cool, but I don't expect it to stick around for very long. Alright, shall we get into our table topic? Topic for today is, can you remake a tabletop RPG system? Which kind of refers back to, obviously, the Curse of Strahd campaign setting is being kind of remade insofar as they're bringing it into the modern edition of Dungeons & Dragons, which obviously is a lot more broken into the mainstream than any previous version of Dungeons and Dragons has ever been. So I think it's cool that, you know, people are going to get to experience this, you know, kind of classic thing. But also, would it not be more interesting to some gamers to actually experience it the way it was, quote unquote, meant to be played? So could they bring back the whole, you know, like an AD&D system? And I feel like there might be a market for that, to have like more better explained books that kind of go a little more in depth into some of the like more obscure rules that might seem really strange to a modern tabletop gamer. What do you guys think on that? Would you be interested in a reprint of AD&D or 3rd edition or something like that?
I have already backed several reprint equivalents. To answer the question here, yes, it's already a thing. People have actually been doing it for quite a while now.
Yeah, just as like little kind of indie projects, though.
Yeah, but that doesn't make them any less.
True, but I feel like because of the nature of that, it is also like just not as successful as bringing them into the mainstream as it would be like if Wizards of the Coast were to literally just reprint, you know, AD&D.
So Wizards of the Coast,
at the point where they are now with 5th edition, I feel like they could theoretically do that and bring on a lot of gamers into, you know, this kind of retro style.
So Wizards of the Coast has reprinted AD&D in fairly recent memory. I want to say like 2015, 2016-ish. They've done reprints of like a deluxe edition reprint of the 3 little brown booklets of OD&D.
Okay.
Which was like $100 and super overpriced, but so it's never been their main focus, but they've always been happy to say, hey, there's a market for that. Let's get some money out of that market.
Right. That's interesting, because I feel like I had no idea, and they advertised that like crap.
Yeah, so it's something that's... And I feel like the big thing you're getting at is trying to reach a new audience with people.
Yeah.
With AD&D, whereas their focus is more about not reaching a new audience, but kind of, what is it, pandering to an old crowd of
You're
grognards.
selling the retro guys the same retro thing they loved when they were a kid.
Yeah. And
it's like making an NES classic, right? You're not giving new gamers access to Super Mario Brothers. You're giving 20-year-old gamers who played Super Mario Brothers, or 30-year-old gamers, 40-year-old gamers who played Super Mario Brothers when it was cool.
Yeah. And so I'd say that a lot of the indie OSR crowd, which if someone knows what indie and OSR tend to refer to, they might be tempted to rip my asshole wide open, because they're pretty different things. But the smaller, like, that smaller crowd would be more tempted to say, hey, here's what the game was like when it was old. Here's how we played it, and try and bring people in. Yeah. And Wizards of the Coast is perfectly happy to say, hey, we're gonna sell you the same thing you bought years ago, but with a fresh coat of paint. Or not even a fresh coat of paint. We've tried to make it look authentic.
Right.
And so it is kind of a shame that And I don't think Wizards would ever. Their incentive isn't there to. What is it? What's the word? Their incentive isn't there to support that because all of their money is in 5th edition.
Right.
But if they were to do that properly, they'd want to give better advice. They'd want to give better ways of playing the game.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that, like, going back, like, even if they just literally are... Because it sounds to me like they're literally just reprinting the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Completely literal reprints.
Yeah, what I'm kind of thinking, though, is that maybe they'd go back through them and, make a couple of, balance changes here and there, perhaps, and things to make it a little bit more player-friendly or player-understanding friendly. Because one of the things I have trouble with a little bit in older systems is kind of reading through it, and, like, a lot of it I feel like is explained in an overcomplicated way. Like, I remember the first time I was reading an AD&D book, and I'm trying to figure out what the fuck Thaco means.
It's all written in, like, High Gygaxian, or it's written in an era before people understood how to write technical English.
Yeah, and in the end, I figured out that, oh, wait, this is literally the same by the numbers as it is in 3.5. It's just explained bass-ackwards. So if they, like, made it... If they used the same system that they do, but, they explained it like 3.5 explains it and used the balance numbers from AD&D, I feel like they could kind of have the best of both worlds, where it's easier to understand, yet it's technically the same system. Are you making a Lazarus pit there or something?
I am making a very
toss
luxurious...
Ghoul?
I'm making a very luxurious pool. It's like a little bath that I'm like, hey, get undressed over here and then climb in the fucking emerald pool.
Nice. For those of you not watching on YouTube, you can check us out every week for different gameplay. This week is Chris playing Minecraft, so check it out. Lyle, you've been a little bit quiet. You don't play as much tabletops as either of us, I don't think, right?
Correct.
You don't play tabletops at all, do you?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So I always think it's interesting to hear people's opinions anyways. So as a person who, like, if you were to get into a tabletop RPG, would you think it would be interesting to see, like, a classic RPG system remade, or would you be more into getting into, like, the modern thing that everybody is playing?
So I'm a very visual person, so it would have to be something that keeps me stimulated. But when it comes to having something traditional versus having something revamped, I think it would depend on the game, really. So so I played Mafia, as like a campfire game with people, and obviously that's not like a tabletop sort of situation. You don't have cards or anything like that, but
it qualifies as like a traditional game. I don't know.
So, but if you look at Mafia, and then now we have Among Us. Among Us is a completely new way to play Mafia.
Yeah.
You could kind of see that as I don't know, a transition from a traditional medium to a new medium. I have a hard time sitting still for a board game for a very long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, it would honestly depend on the game.
Okay.
But I'm big on the traditional sense. So like with Final Fantasy VII, I wish they retained the turn-based combat.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kept me going. The action, the revamping, like the graphics are great. Like it's a new way to play. an older game for sure. But in that case, I would want, new gamers to be able to appreciate where this new version of this older game is coming from. Which is why I was kind of hoping that they would include like a turn-based setting that wasn't, like easy mode or tutorial mode or something like that.
Right, yeah. That was weird how they advertised classic mode too, because they said, oh yeah, it gives you a more classic vibe. And I'm like, no, it's just like, you're not good at this game mode. Right?
Yeah.
Because classic mode, literally, it just plays most of the game for you. It's weird. Like, I read through it when I was, like, looking through the game modes, and I was like, dude, this is, like, crazy.
Bizarre.
This doesn't even... Yeah, it's like, why would you want that much of the game to be played for you? Like, why at that point, why aren't you just watching Advent Children or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and because I can't miss this opportunity to shill for myself,
Mm-hmm.
or Five Cataclysms is very much in the vein of a retread like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, So
That's
yes,
true. So check out
Em-
5
emphatically-
Cataclysms on Drive-Thru
emphatically
RPG.
yes, yes.
Hashtag shameless plug. Every time we shamelessly plug each other, we have to drink, right?
Yeah, I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to you drinking to that.
Thank you. I'll drink to you drinking to that.
Nice. All right. Is there anything else we want to kind of go over here as far as remaking a tabletop RPG system? I kind of got this idea in my head personally because I was thinking the other day of our play group and, the various ups and downs we've had because for the most part, we've stuck to the 3.5 and Pathfinder editions. And something I have with, sometimes when we have new players in our group or new players in other groups, sometimes have difficulty jumping into 3.5 as an edition because it's a lot more rules intensive than 5th edition. You have to be a little bit more of an expert in everything to kind of run the game as well as you do in 5th edition, where in 5th edition it's just, I don't want to say dumbed down, but I feel like it's just easier to kind of pick up and play, even if you've literally never played a tabletop game before. You can pick up 5th edition with a group of buddies, just buy the core rule books and you'll figure it out. Whereas I feel like you almost have to be taught 3.5.
Yeah.
But that's where I started, and so that's, it's familiar to me, and I find the things that I love about it are also not there in 5th edition as well. So that's kind of where I got into this was, could they remake 3.5 or even re-release it for the new audience now that D&D is as popular as it is? And I wonder how something like that would work, where it's like, I feel, because 3.5 is also familiar enough where I feel like 5th edition players, if now that they have that basis, I feel like if it was explained correctly, it wouldn't be as big of a shock as it is to players that are just oh, I've played 5th edition before, I pick up a 3.5 book and try to figure it out myself, and then they're still confused. I feel like it's maybe part of the problem.
I think the big draw of 3.5 was building your character kind of mini game.
Yeah.
Which is not a knock against 3.5. It's one of the reasons it was like the most popular edition for a long time. But I think that appeals to a specific niche of people. Like you and I, Sean, both like Magic the Gathering. We like the deck building aspect of that.
Yeah.
Other people don't. They hate it. They vehemently despise it, and as a result, they don't play Magic.
Yeah. And I've
and
even
that's
got some
kind of-
friends that play Magic that don't like the deck building, so they build like one deck that works pretty well that they don't have to pay attention to how to play very much. That, you know,
Yeah.
no matter what's going on, you'll play the deck the same. And they'll play the same deck, you know, or the same 2 or 3 decks, you know, maybe if they get that far.
Yeah,
Whereas I'm
so-
like a guy that builds decks and then keeps them forever, and I have a backpack with 100 decks in it.
So I feel like for people like you and me, 3.5 has a very strong appeal in that, oh, but what if I do this, and what if I do this?
Yeah.
But I feel like that character building minigame or the deck building meta game is very different from playing like the actual game in a lot of ways. And a lot of players resent having to feel like they need to be good at the mini game to get to play the actual game
Right.
of like Magic or D&D.
I feel like
think that's
those
the
kinds of
strength
things are
of fifth
kind of
edition.
intertwined, though, because, you know, I feel like you will never be great at Magic unless you are focusing on deck building as well as playing your deck correctly. Because,
I absolutely
like,
agree with you.
you can look up the best deck build that there is online and, you know, buy the cards and build the tournament winning deck from last year and go in and suck because you don't know when to play what card, you know. And I feel like this is true in both cases, because you could feat build a fighter a million different ways in 3.5 and make a million different characters. You know, because that was one of the things that I loved is I'd just play fighters, but I'd, you know, build them differently every time I played one. So I'd have like a lance charging horse riding fighter. I'd have a giant axe fighter. I'd have a sword and shield fighter, and each one of them would be customized a little differently to make each one of those things more effective. And because of the way I customized them, it really had to engage me also in the way that I thought about them tactically. Because, you know, I can't just charge into battle every single time and get myself right into the middle with the sword and shield guy. But that's
Sean?
exactly what I do with a... So it really depends on what you're doing. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is, one, I agree with you. If in both 3.5 and in Magic, the deck building or the character building is such a huge part of how you play. It's part of like how you get good at the game. But two, that necessarily limits the scope of its like appeal. There are players that love one aspect of the game and just don't care for the character building. And I think the strength of 5th edition and a lot of the old school D&D editions is you can sit down and you can roll up a character and you can be playing that character in about 5 minutes. And obviously we've had our arguments about the old school kind of D&D style versus the newer kind of D&D, or like the 3.5 kind of D&D style, where I'm a fan of both, but I really like the kind of build a character. I really like the kind of your character develops through experiences and you don't explicitly build them aspect of it. It's my preferred at this point. Even if I still love 3.5, because that's also what I grew up on.
Yeah.
I think what would the thing you'd have to approach when you did a remake of those games and you wanted to explain to players or like potential buyers what the appeal of those games were, the advice you would give, and like in either circumstance is wildly different.
Yeah. Because I feel like there's definitely a benefit to pick up and play, but at the end of the day, I feel like if you take the time to learn a more complex system, it's more rewarding to make a more interesting character. Because, like I said, in 3.5, you can build a fighter a million ways. In 5th edition, you build a fighter, and he's just a fighter. And every fighter is almost unanimously the same.
I think the complexities of 3.5 also had the trade-offs of longer turns, longer combat rounds, a more kind of a greater emphasis on like combat and mechanical differentiation over like roleplay differentiation.
Yeah.
Which again is just like it's particular to that game. I don't hate it. In fact, I love it because it's what I grew up playing. But
yeah,
it's 3.5. I feel like 3.5 remake would need to focus on options and be like, hey, look at all these options, and then it would need to focus on, oh, don't pick these bad options. It would need to like carefully prune itself to get rid of, like, remember the original feat toughness that gave you 3 extra hit points?
Yeah.
So it would need to either get rid of it or rework something like that into, well, what Pathfinder toughness is.
Yeah.
Remake, and in essence, we've seen a remake of 3.5 in Pathfinder.
That's true. I'd be kind of interested to look at sales numbers for the 2 of those as well, because Pathfinder has also been kind of kept up over the years more than 3.5 has, because obviously Wizards of the Coast moved on to 4th edition and just stopped giving a shit about 3.5, but Pathfinder has been going for quite a while.
And 4th edition was definitely, I think I like 4th edition, but it was definitely a move too much in that direction, the character building direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So is that all we have on this topic here then? Pretty much.
I think I've said my piece.
All right. Then we'll get into our final segment of the podcast, which is where we talk about inane bullshit until somebody says something really awkward and I cut off the podcast.
Okay. I will...
What kind of inane bullshit are we going to spin today?
Well, today I'll just say we moved the 5 Cataclysms storefront. We still have it on DriveThruRPG, but it's now up on itch.io. So if you ever felt like picking up any of that retro gaming, but with a new take on it, bullshit that we got going on, you can pick our stuff up there. Pick up 5 Cataclysms Core Rules Beta Edition, which is, still under development, and House of Flowers, which is an adventure I wrote for free, and see how the game would have been like in an alternate universe, almost. I think is how one reviewer described it.
Nice. Yeah, so I guess we could also do our shameless plugs at the end that I usually forget. So as always, I'm your host, Sean Michael Patrick Thompson. You can catch me on twoguys.playingzelda.com. I have articles and stuff, and I've got an idea for a new article that I haven't got around to writing for a couple of weeks, so I have to drink. Which means I need more beer. And of course, we're joined by our special guest this week, Mr. Breath of the Lyle. You can catch him on all sorts of places. Lyle, tell him about yourself.
I am on allsortsofplaces.com. Just kidding, don't go there. That's not a real place. If you do, I am not responsible for what you may or may not find. I am on Twitter, Instagram.
We're having trouble finding that site.
I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch.
The site can't be reached. You lied.
I said I'm not responsible. By the same name, Breath of the Wild, I stream all sorts of things. I love games. I love talking. I'm also Two Guys Playing Zelda writer, although I have probably the longest period from my last article up until now of all the writers. But that is okay. I still have ideas tossed around. So
I think I'm one of the 2 that's actually posted anything since the pandemic started. So it's a little bit okay. Everybody's a little like the whole website kind of just like everybody who writes for it just kind of stopped existing for a few months. And most of us have not done shit since. So don't feel too bad about it. Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and of course my glorious-ish cloho drink.
I already plugged myself because I'm a jackass.
Yeah, but you forgot to say Chris, an inexplicable, hilarious middle name, Audek.
Oh fuck! Yeah, I really gotta drink for that.
I'll drink to that.
Chris
love-
Condominium Audet.
I love mugs with a lid, because you can just flap them up and down. Every time you're drinking, you're like, look at me. I have a lid.
I like your lidded mug.
Yeah. That's a good one. I chose this one actually specifically because I got a Golden City Brewery beer, and I used to work at the Cheshire Cat Brew Pub, which was owned by the same owners who still own the Golden City Brewery, and I worked there when I was a teenager, and they had a thing where if you brought in a mug, you could keep it there at the place and drink beer out of it all the time. And even though I wasn't over 21, I bought this mug at the thrift store and I brought it in and I'd drink Mountain Dew out of it all the time. Except when the cook got off and he'd say, "Here, let me get you some more Mountain Dew," and he'd actually fill it full of woodchuck hard cider. So that was how I got some of my underage drinking.
You sure you want to advertise that?
We're not
To all the
advertising
children
it.
of the world, all the children that listen to us.
They can't shut down the Cheshire Cat. It's
already
closed
shut
10 years ago, almost. When was that? That was
They can totally have to go
That was
after
actually
that
more
guy
than
based
10
on
years
your
ago.
extremely vague description.
Yeah. So, well, if they look up the specific cook and they can figure out which one it was that was giving me pints of cider underage, I'm sure that they can give him a ticket. That'll be fine. I'll just tell it. I'll tell them it was the one I didn't like. If the cops come knocking at my door, I'll be like,
Corrupting the youth.
"Yeah, don't drink, you youths."
Utes. You boobs.
I mean, come on, Chris. Weren't you the one drinking, underage with me when we were at Rob's house drinking fucking Mountain Dew and vodka?
I don't know that I want that out. I don't know that I want that out there, but
I won't tell him the whole story.
Hypothetically,
I
may
won't
have
tell him
been
about
doing
the
that
strip
at some point.
poker.
I was not there for the strip poker.
Oh, that's right, you weren't.
Yeah, I missed that one. I was just doing. I did not have to see your penis that day.
No, you didn't.